welcome. I'm so glad you joined us. I am here today with Brandon. He is episode 7, Mind and Gut. It was filmed in Moscow, Idaho with the facilitator, Kathy Kwakowski, and we had such an incredible experience. Brandon, thanks so much for being here. I think that your session was powerful, and I was sitting there going, wait, is this for me? Because the things you were saying about not feeling connected to your intuition was literally the same narrative I was given. I was told that if you feel emotions, that's how the devil can trick you. And so push them out. And if you feel this inner knowing, that might be the devil tricking you. So don't do that. And I was absolutely floored that somebody else had that same narrative in their life. And then you had this amazing session of how you can be connected to that. So thank you for sharing that publicly. I am so honored that I got to hold that space with you.
Yeah, my experience, I would have to say, is second to none. For one thing, Kathy, she's great. I actually have another session booked with her here in a week, which I'm very excited for. But I learned so much. I would have to say that the two most pivotal things in my life that have changed my viewpoint on life is hypnotherapy and psychedelics, specifically with ayahuasca. I have had a couple of different ceremonies, and within those, I've had so much personal growth and insight that it's completely changed my view of my soul journey as well as the world.
Yeah, thank you for giving presence to that. I tell people all the time, ayahuasca and hypnotherapy saved my soul. It's the inner journey that you get through that space. And I'll give presence to my ayahuasca experience. The first time I ever did a session, I felt this feeling, this heaviness come on me, and I'm like, "What is this? What is this?" And I just had to release into it. And as soon as I released into it, I saw with it was like red neon writing, kind of like a Budweiser sign. And on the left side, it said, "Enjoy the ride." And I was like, "Enjoy the ride? What does that mean?" And I viscerally felt this voice of ayahuasca say, "David, that's what you're supposed to be doing here. You're supposed to be enjoying the ride." And I'm like, "But I'm not enjoying the ride. Things are hard." And then as soon as I had that thought in blue neon writing, like a Budweiser sign, it said beliefs. And I was like, "Beliefs? What does that mean?" She said, "What you believe becomes real." I went, "Oh, so I believed a certain narrative, and if I unbelieve those things or believe different things, then it can change my perspective, and I have to be in that vibration of enjoying the ride." And then later in time, I did a hypnotherapy session, and I didn't see that same message, but I saw a lifetime in which I did things I didn't enjoy, and then I realized, oh, that goes back to that ayahuasca thing, and that experience informed my hypnotherapy experience. It went, okay, I see I've even lived lives where I haven't been authentic to what my truth was and what I should be doing. And so in that life, I decided to do something that informed my present life. And part of that is for me to share stories, and I created Journeys into the Soul. And so that's a combination of how ayahuasca and hypnotherapy have informed my journey. Give me an example of, something you'd like to share with people.
I mean, I would say that my experience is a lot like yours. I was raised in a belief system where I had a really hard time trusting my instinct because I was always taught that if I wasn't following the correct path, which my life was definitely not on the correct path in their terms, that I was following the devil. And so within my experience with hypnotherapy, I definitely had that acknowledgement that I could trust myself, that I could trust my intuition. And that was what I needed to live my own truth in this life and to be able to move forward with consciousness. The exact same experience with ayahuasca that I was recognized within one of my ceremonies that I was not living my authentic truth, and that in order for me to be successful and not just business successful but successful with my soul journey, that I needed to be authentic with myself and I needed to live my truth. And that's kind of the place that I'm at now, is I'm trying to digest and to try to understand exactly what my truth is and to try to walk that path on a daily basis. So
Mm.
some days it's definitely easier than others, but that's my goal.
Yeah, that is such a great message. Thanks for sharing that. I get that integrity piece with yourself. So many times we will be in a situation and we'll say, "Hey, how's it going, Dave?" "Oh, great. Everything's perfect. I'm so fine. I don't have any problems." And we realize in those spaces we're lying to ourselves. Share with me kind of some methodology of what you do to stay integrity with yourself so that you're speaking your truth, but you're not freaking people out at the same time.
Oh, I would say that that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, we
Yeah.
have all of these social norms that, hey, Dave, how are you doing today? And, oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. That's a really hard thing, especially I'm a business owner. So when I walk up to somebody's house to give them an estimate and they say, how are you doing today? You don't want to unload on somebody and, oh man, today has been horrible. That, my employees, I'd like to strangle them. I'm having a really hard time in my personal relationship. I mean, when my kids are driving me crazy, like, just trying to be integratable in that situation. So I find myself saying things like, well, I'm kind of a bit of a mess today, but how are you doing? Turn it back onto them and, as quickly as I can, take the spotlight off of myself.
Yeah, that's so good. I realize a lot of times if I'm not speaking truth to myself, I'm lying to myself. And if I'm not acknowledging, hey, here's the emotions I'm feeling, that's part of the human journey is to feel emotions. I hear soul journey stories all the time that people say, we come here to feel the range of human emotions. And Earth is a particularly difficult planet to be on because there's so much obstacles, so much things that impede this easy life. I don't know why, but apparently we like to come here because we want to have the advanced life lessons. We want to play our Earth character on extreme hard mode. I've heard a lot of people say if you come here to this planet, you're a ninja in the spirit world, and I think that's one of the big things is this human journey can be full of challenges and be full of opportunities for you to really feel who are you. And if you're lying to yourself, going, "Oh, I'm fine, I don't have any problems," and you're just pushing them off, then you're not living in that authenticity to yourself.
Yeah, in one of my ayahuasca ceremonies, I recognize that I've had a lot of loss in my life. I lost a brother, I've lost a brother-in-law, I lost an employee that was way more than an employee that was with me for 10 years, and he was like a brother and a son. And when I was having those losses to begin with, I chose to use substances to try to block out the feeling. And I realize now that the substances were not helping me. That's a challenge because it was a long time that I was in those depths and that despair, and I chose to try to drink it away or smoke it away. But what I have found, and unfortunately, it was with the last experience of my loss of my close friend Christian, that we need to feel. That's why we're here. I mean, just like what you had said before, if we don't feel, we're not growing, we're not gaining, and that's the whole point of us being in this incarnation is so that we can grow, we can experience, and we can move consciousness forward. And I was doing an injustice to myself as well as my life by choosing to not do that and by choosing substances in its place.
Wow, that is powerful. Part of the journey that I've had with hypnotherapy, I wanted to share with the world. And I found practitioners and I said, would you be willing to share a session with a client? And when I contacted Kathy, she's like, I definitely would be willing to facilitate that. You and I connected, and you said I would be willing to share this journey. And so we started filming. And I was astounded at the lessons I was receiving from your episode. I hope other people get the same thing that I got is that you're on a soul journey and you came in with some questions and you felt this connection to your intuition. You're like, it's like my mind and my gut. I can trust my gut. How has it been since your session connecting with your intuition?
I would say it's still a challenge for me. 40 years of a belief system ingrained is it's a hard thing to break free from. But I believe that is, like I was saying before, that is the integrity. And if we're not following our gut, if we're not following our intuition, then we're not living our lives with integrity. And it was a challenge for me for so many years. And it's something that I have to consciously, catch myself on. It's something that I meditate about, and it's definitely a journey that I would say that I'm on, and trying to continue the path.
Yeah, those of us that were given a certain narrative on life that if you do this thing, then you'll be okay. And you later in life go, what if I don't want to create my identity on a belief system? What if I want to find out for myself who I am? And that's, to me, that's my human experience. I had a narrative I was given from my parents. My parents still have that narrative. It's their journey. They can have that narrative, but it didn't serve me. It wasn't something that I wanted to experience anymore. And so I'm on a journey, and part of me learning to love myself is not to need external validation. If my parents validate me, I'll be loved. If my spouse validates me, I'll be loved. If people in business validate me, I'll be loved. What if I was able to find self-love in just who I am? And that's part of my soul journey, is having that space. And, my parents still love me, but quite frankly, they can't understand or accept that the work that I'm doing in the world is trying to bring consciousness forward. They think I'm being deceived by the devil. They think I'm doing something wrong. And if you do hypnotherapy, that's how you get demons and stuff like that. And it's just the space of, we can't share that. So I try to find ways to connect with them. How's the weather where you are and stuff like that. Have you had any experiences or anyone that you've left the narrative and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I integrate that into my life?
I would say, what you said resonated with me so much, because I mean, exact same experience. My parents they're LDS Mormon, and they're never going to accept me for who I am, because I'm not. That's not my belief system. I have come to a level where I'm at, that I accept them for who they are, that they're not going to change, that that's their belief system, but they're never going to be that same way with me. I just had the realization just within the last couple of weeks that my whole life that I have been searching for their acceptance. When I recognized that I wasn't going to get their acceptance because I was not following the same belief system as them, I was striving to do it in any way that I could. The major realization that I had is that I was just constantly chasing the dollar, because I thought if I was financially successful, if I made more money, more money, more money, that they'd be proud of me, that they'd accept me. It's been a rabbit hole that I've been chasing for years and years and years. And I mean, what I really realize now is, like, what I need to be working on and moving myself forward personally, my soul journey, and not trying to be so worried about financial success. You know, Unfortunately, I have come to the realization that my parents aren't going to accept me, and it doesn't matter how much money I have. It doesn't matter where I'm at. That's just the case that it is. And so, because of that, I I need to look into myself and to find out what my truth is, and to seek my truth. I every day I try to watch a different NDE experience, near death experience, because they've been so pivotal in changing my outlook on life. And they also just resonate with me. I had an experience when I was about 6 or 7 years old, where I was actually in my pre-life planning stage, which I didn't realize at that time until I read Michael Newton's book. And when I read Michael Newton's book, I literally dropped the copy as I was reading that, because I was like, wow, this is what this was. The whole time I thought, was I abducted by aliens? Because the experience that I had was so true. I remember exactly it. But I was like, it can't be real. This couldn't have happened, until I read Newton's book, and I was like, oh, wow, that's where I was. I was watching these three screens. I was watching my life. My guide was there asking me, is this the life that you want to live? Is this the incarnation that you want? And I was like, yeah, yeah, this is going to work for me. And the funny thing is I remember thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be easy.
Yeah,
Oh boy, was I wrong.
yeah. Yeah, no, a lot of that pre-birth planning is us as the soul is like, oh yeah, I'm going to tackle this and I'm going to tackle that and I'm going to move my soul consciousness forward. And then we get the veil of forgetfulness. We get this and this amnesia, if you will. And we get down here and we're like, wait, who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? What's this all about? And on the other side, your guide is just like face palming, going, oh, I told you you're going to forget that. Find your authenticity and your who you are, your truth inside. And I think that's the first lesson. But I do believe that as we go on our soul journeys, we get to those places a little quicker in life. And, I didn't have a spiritual awakening till 45 years old. And then it was like, oh, okay. So for the last decade, I've been on this journey of who am I? Why am I here? And I think I have a pretty good idea at this point. And it was informed definitely by Dr. Michael Newton writing Journey of Souls. Definitely the first thing I did was I studied near-death experiences. What happens after we die? There's a near-death experience. People have these. So I think it's fascinating that you two have done that. And there'll be times, literally, I'll be working on something that doesn't require me to have, paying attention to a screen. And I can put on an account of somebody going into the afterlife, seeing that they're part of the all and God loves them. And then they come back to this life with this newfound revelation. I too love NDEs. They've really informed my life.
And it's so amazing to read Newton's book or Dolores Cannon's books and to see the similarities between people's NDEs and what when people are under a hypnotic state or Dolores Cannon has people in a hypnotic state, what they're experiencing, it's like exactly the same. And that, I mean, that's had a profound experience for me because the until I recognized that that's where I was in was that space of pre-life planning, I kind of thought that I was a little bit crazy. And, because it was so true to me, it was so vivid to me. I remember it clearer than anything I can remember, ever. And, those books as well as the NDEs have just solidified that for me that is my truth.
Yeah. Is there anything specifically, remembering that whole experience, is there anything specific that you can share with us?
I mean, just like I said, I think that the only thing that my biggest memory is telling my guide that I'm gonna remember this. And he was like, no, you're not. You're not going to remember this. And I was like, no, I'm going to remember this. I'm sinking this into my soul memory right now, and I'm going to remember this in this incarnation. And he's like, no, you're not going to remember this. Good luck trying, but you're not going to remember this. And I also remember thinking that it was going to be easy, but I didn't. The reason I thought it was going to be easy is because my last incarnation must have been years prior, because I remember looking at my pre-life and seeing like running water and a refrigerator and thinking like, oh, it's not going to be so much work to just try to live. That's where I was thinking of like, this is going to be easy.
Wow. Okay, so you're on this soul journey. You're in your 40s. How has it been for you? How easy is it?
Not easy at all.
Uh,
I think, but once again, just like what you said, I mean, I think that's why we choose to come to this plane, why we choose to come to Earth, is because it's not easy. There is so many experiences that we have, our emotions, our feelings, they're so strong, they're so real. I believe that that's why we come here, is because even though it's challenging, that's what helps move us forward in our soul journey.
yeah. In your session with Kathy, one of the most exciting parts for me was you had this journey, you had this understanding, you had this kind of stressful, and then you're like, okay, I can trust my intuition. And then you're like, okay, now I'm floating, and your anxiety, not maybe that's the wrong word, and your level of tension somehow was reduced. And you went, oh, I'm floating through the cosmos. Oh, it's so beautiful. And you had this connection in the universe as being part of it. Tell me more about what that experience was like for you in session.
I mean, pretty much just exactly how you described it. I mean, the anxiety was, I believe, me trying to get in touch with myself. And, once again, I have not been walking with integrity for so many years that I was on the wrong path. And I was seeking, but I wasn't getting what I needed. when I was in session, that release was like me feeling that oneness with the universe. It's feeling like that we're back home, and when we're here on this plane, this isn't our home. As much as, I want to say that I'm sitting in my house right now, which I am, but this is not my home. My home is another place. And, I mean, that realization both within my hypnotherapy session, but also the solidification with reading Michael Newton's books, with watching people's NDEs experiences, it just, that all solidified within me. And I think that that's what gave me that comfort in that, was like, oh, I'm home. Like, this is where I need to be. This is where I'm longing to be. This is where I'm striving to be.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. I'm in my home. I'm back where I belong with my people, with my support group. And every time people are like, yeah, we come to this earth, we have a human experience, and when we're complete with it, we go back home. I hear that narrative every single time. I love hypnotherapy. I love ayahuasca. I love how it all works together. And I too have had that connection with the NDE, the ayahuasca, the hypnotherapy. It all informs the same place: spiritual being, simply having a different experience. In our case, right now, we're having a human experience, and it's all to inform the soul growth. I heard Peter Smith, he's the author of Quantum Consciousness. Kathy was using material from his methodology when she worked with you with your multidimensional journey. And Pete said, I think this universe is a grand experiment to see if we can find out more about who we are, find out the authenticity of who we are and what we're all about on a conscious level. And so we're having these individual characters being played, but it all moves forward with the conscious collective. And I thought that was such a beautiful way to put it, that this whole experience is so we can greater understand who we really are.
Within that hypnotherapy session that I was having, I really had this uh, overwhelming feeling of connectedness. It's crazy that we feel that we're so alone a lot of the time, and that, even though we are having this individual experience, it's amazing how really connected that we are. And I think that that's very true. You walk into a room and you can just feel the vibration. If somebody's sad, if the room is angry, but we lose that. We don't recognize that. We're going on our own experience, and we're having a hard day or whatever, but we are so connected. And that was, I mean, the session that I had with Kathy, that was one of the things that I really recognized. And I mean, it was like this vision of all of these souls flowing into this same river or ocean, and we were all flowing together. And it was like this massive connectionness. It made me feel warm inside. It made me feel loved.
Yeah, you used the analogy of dominoes, like one affects the other. Give me some more information about that.
I mean, that was actually the visual that I got when I was in my hypnotherapy session, is that it's almost not just that we affect each other, or that one person affects the next. It's the interconnectedness that we all affect each other. And I think that that's in the world state that we're in right now. I mean, there's so much divide, and it's such a challenge, because you have this political view and this political view. But if we would just all just sit back for a second and recognize that we are all one, that we're all one, we're all brothers. Doesn't matter who we are, doesn't matter who you are, what life you're living, we are all connected. We're all here for the same purpose. This world would be such a better place.
Yeah, people in hypnotherapy, people that do psychedelics, even the NDE, it's all about we're all here to experience this oneness, and yet we have our individuality. And so I'm going to play the character David, you're going to play the character Brandon, and et cetera, et cetera. And those experiences will inform us. And they do talk about all the time coming back to the whole and re-informing each other of the experiences. I've heard the NDEers talk about, oh yeah, I went back and I told them this is what I was doing. They're like, great, you're not done yet. You got to go back. They're like, no, sometimes people get upset. They're like, I don't want to go back. And they do. And it's all about informing the all.
And that's the other thing too, that, I mean, I would say has been my experience, is the fear of sharing your experiences with others. I mean, watching a lot of people with their NDE experiences, they're very afraid when they come back to share their experience because they're a doctor or whatever. They're very respected in their career, and they're afraid that others are not going to respect them when they say what they feel or saw on the other side. And that has been my experience as well. I mean, there's this anxiety to try to share with others because you're just afraid that they're not going to understand and they're going to judge you and they're not going to accept you.
That is so good. Dolores Cannon and Dr. Michael Newton, they were respected in their communities as psychotherapists. Specifically, Newton, he was a well-respected PhD doctor, and he was here to help people with childhood trauma, and he was here to help people with weight loss and not smoking and those things. And then when he discovered the soul journey, it was like, whoa. And he was afraid he was going to be considered a wacko and not be respected by the community. And yet he still had the boldness to say, I'm going to share this. I'm going to make this public. And in the early 90s is when he wrote Journey of Souls. And it's just been a book that's changed consciousness. The same with Dolores Cannon. A lot of people come to this work through Newton's book, and then they'll see Dolores Cannon's videos on YouTube. I'm just so grateful that both of these institutes and foundations have made available this information so it can help consciousness move forward.
Yeah. And that's one thing that, Kathy, she was a counselor before she started doing the hypnotherapy work, and it's amazing that a lot of people that I see, it's one of those things that they do later in life because they are afraid that it's going to affect their career, that's going to affect, how people view them, whether they respect them or not. What's crazy is if you go through the experience and you have the experience, once you're on the other side, you have more respect for these practitioners. You have more respect because then you get it. You understand.
Yeah. Yeah. In episode 20, the client's name was Sansi, and Sansi starts giggling, and Tracy Mahan was the practitioner. And she goes, what's so funny? She goes, well, I'm doing my pre-birth planning, and I'm coming down and I see my home, and I'm kind of like checking out the surroundings of the body I'm going to be in and the mother. She says, but they're laughing at me. And Tracy's like, well, what are they laughing at? She goes, I can't remember shit. She goes, what? She goes, yeah, I can't remember anything. I don't remember my pre-birth planning. Now I'm in this body and I have to have this journey. And I just, whew. So yeah, we're here to grow and explore and expand, and it's all one, and it's peace and love, and we have these hardships, but yeah, you can't remember anything. And so I think it's funny in your journey, you were mentioning earlier that you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to remember this. You guys like, nah, you're not going to remember this.
Yeah, so true. And I mean, it's crazy. It took me until I was in my late 30s to be able to recognize, I mean, and not until I read Michael Newton's book to recognize what that actually was, where I was at, where I was in that space, and then to have that realization of like the conversation, my guide was there, the conversation that I was having with my guide as I was watching this pre-life planning, it's, yeah, very profound.
Well, dude, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for sharing your journey. What do you want people to know from the experiences you've had, from the soul journey you're on? What is the wisdom that you'd like to share with people today?
I mean, I would say living with integrity, living your truth, whatever that truth is for you, that's what matters for you. We all have a different journey. We're all here for a different purpose. And, making sure that you're just being authentic to yourself, listening to your gut, following that intuition, and, just try to constantly be moving forward with it.
Mm, beautiful. Well, I love you so much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being a powerful episode on Journeys into the Soul. And to you, my friend, I say namaste.